What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Chokehold Hour. As always, I am your host, Nate, and this week we're going to be doing what we do best, what we aim to do every week, and that is preview and go over the card taking place this weekend in the United Arab Emirates at the Etihad Arena. That is UFC 294. UFC 294, ladies and gentlemen, got possibly the only possible upgrades attainable for this card when Paulo Costa pulled out of his fight with Khamzat Chimaev and Charles Oliveira pulled out of his fight with Islam Makhachev. The replacements being Alexander Volkanovski and Kamaru Usman. I mean, God, if you were going to make the card better, those might be the only two names within the sport that have the ability, the skill, and the draw to make the card better. I mean, Islam versus Volk 2 and Khamzat versus Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare Usman at the co-main event slot. This pay-per-view has a real chance to be pay-per-view of the year. I mean, UFC 294 from bottom to top, the talent is unrivaled. The quality of fights is just, it is amazing. And I am so beyond excited for this weekend, hence why I am here buzzing in the studio right now about to tell you all who I believe will come out victorious in their respective fights this weekend. So we're going to do what we do best. We're going to start at the bottom of the card, the first fight on the main card, and make our way slowly but surely to that main event between Islam Makhachev, Khabib's prodigy, as he takes on Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Let's jump right into it, ladies and gentlemen. The Chokehold Hour starts now. Okay, so the first fight on this main card, we have Said Nurmagomedov versus Muin Gafurov. So this is an interesting fight because Said Nurmagomedov, he's a very dynamic fighter. He can flow very easily. If you watch his fight against Cody Stamann, where he ended up securing a choke to win the fight, he did not secure that choke in a ordinary fashion, I could say. He began the fight striking early and often, used his kicks, his spinning kicks specifically, to maintain range while doing severe damage to Stamann's body, and eventually, after a plethora of spinning kicks and spinning attacks like spinning back fists, after really just a moment in time where Said Nurmagomedov was in what would be called the flow state, Cody Stamann shot an ugly takedown. Said was able to capitalize, lock up the choke, and get the job done, ending that fight. It was a 47-second submission, so a relatively quick finish from the ever-dangerous Said Nurmagomedov. So yeah, Said is he can do everything everywhere. He is a good striker. He has diverse attacks and skill sets. He really can do a lot on the feet, and he's also always a threat on the ground. He is a dangerous grappler with a plethora of submissions in his bag of tricks. So yeah, I love Said Nurmagomedov as a prospect. I think his one drawback as a fighter is his inability to manage his cardio and last throughout the entirety of a 3-round fight. I mean, what he does is he comes out early and often, he stays strong in your face in that first round, and he kind of dies out a little bit in those second and third rounds. If you look at his fight with Douglas Silva de Andrade, it was a decision victory where he did win, but he kind of slowed down as the fight went on, giving Andrade a chance to reestablish himself in that fight and get back into that fight, which is why it ended up being close. So yeah, Said, I think that's his biggest issue. He just has trouble managing his stamina because he has so many abilities and tricks that when he implements those abilities and tricks, he's not thinking about how the current moment is going to impact or tax his gas tank later on in the fight, and that's something he needs to get better at. That comes with experience and time. His fight IQ and ability to manage his stamina will grow with time, but it is a little nerve-wracking for me that he can't really, at this point in his career where he's fought a couple fights in the UFC, he doesn't have the ability to understand when it is the time for what type of strike. I mean, you can open the fight with spinning any sort of spinning kick or back fist or anything to maybe throw your opponent off their game, get them on edge a little bit, but you can't continuously throw spinning strikes. You're just going to gas out so quickly. Now, Said is coming off of a loss to Jonathan Martinez, and when I watched that fight, I was a little disappointed with Said Nurmagomedov's performance, but after watching Jonathan Martinez just dismantle Adrian Yanez with leg kicks, that loss is truly aging nicely for Said. Jonathan Martinez he's a legit contender who can break into the top 15, in my opinion. I think the way he fought against Adrian Yanez was so just smart. He used his range, he used his size advantage, threw leg kicks, slowed Yanez down, took away his ability to stand and trade and box, which is Adrian Yanez's main skill set. Jonathan Martinez neutralized that skill set and eventually got the leg kick TKO because it was just too much to bear for Yanez. So that loss is aging very nicely, sir, for Said Nurmagomedov. I still think he is a prospect that holds water and is one to be watched in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, his opponent, Muin Gafurov, he's only fought once in the UFC. In that one fight, it was a loss to John Castaneda. Castaneda actually, he not only dropped Gafurov on the feet with a nasty punch. He dropped him. He hurt him bad. He buzzed him. He also landed 3 takedowns on 6 attempts, landing at a 50% clip. So Gafurov showed a vulnerability in that fight to really every aspect of martial arts. And when you look at Said Nurmagomedov, he is a martial artist. He embodies what it means to practice the sport of martial arts. He has submission victories, TKOs. He can knock you out and he can choke you out. He can truly do it all. And Gafurov, like I said, he showed a vulnerability to every aspect of martial arts when he got taken down by Castaneda, and he got dropped by Castaneda as well. So when you're showing that you have a weakness or a hole in almost every aspect of your game and your skill set in martial arts, that not only leaves plenty of film to be watched for your opponent, but it just builds confidence for Said entering this fight. I mean, he knows that he probably has the striking advantage. He knows he probably has the grappling advantage and can really take this fight wherever he wants to take it and feel safe and okay and be in the driver's seat of what is happening within that octagon. So I personally love Said Nurmagomedov in this opening bout on the main card. I think Said is definitely going to get the job done here by really however he wants. I think Said Nurmagomedov is a special talent who just needs to learn how to fight a little bit more, not in the sense of skills, but in managing when and how he uses his skills. I think this could be that fight because he really can experiment and explore in all aspects against a guy like Muin, who really just did not look all that great in his UFC debut. So, yeah, I'm taking Said Nurmagomedov to get the job done here by finish at that. I do not think that this fight will reach the final bell and go the full 15 minutes that fight lasts over the course of 3 rounds. I think Said is going to get it done in 1 or 2, but I'm not sure how. I truly think that he can. I see Said Nurmagomedov dropping Muin Gafurov and then locking up a choke because Muin is buzzed and hurt on the floor and is not really with his wits and has not had time to gather his bearings back together. So I personally think Said is going to buzz Muin on the feet and then use that opportunity to obtain a submission victory, capitalize on his hurt opponent, and get the job done in 1 or 2, like I said. So I'm taking Said Nurmagomedov to win this opening bout by however he wants. Lock it in, take it to the bank. That's what's going to make you some money. Said Nurmagomedov by finish. Okay, let's make our way to the second fight on this main card, where Ikram Aliskerov takes on Warlley Alves. Now, Warlley Alves is a veteran of the sport. He's fought since 2014, obviously has experience, has the ring time advantage over the young Ikram Aliskerov, who's only fought once in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But in that one fight, I was actually blessed with the ability to watch that fight in person, not only in person, but with really the best seats in the house. I was sitting cage side on the floor thanks to one of my best friends and the manager of this podcast, Zach Steklow. He helps me out with the Twitter, producing these episodes and whatnot. But we went to that fight together and we watched Ikram in person from a very close vantage point. We really could see every little movement and detail in his fight against Phil Hawes, where he performed for the first time in the UFC octagon. And boy, did he look incredible. I mean, here's what I'll say about Ikram Aliskerov. He is defensively irresponsible at times. In that fight against Phil Hawes, we all know Phil Hawes is a talented striker whose chin is a little bit wishy-washy. But Phil Hawes was touching Ikram up in that fight. He was definitely landing shots of his own. He was starting to feel himself in the boxing range and string together some long combinations. And Ikram, he was taking the shots very well. No damage worn on his face, no visible pain or reaction to the shots, but he was definitely getting hit a decent amount, I was a little worried. I was like, he can't really maintain this for the course of 15 minutes and 3 rounds. But what I found out later in that first round is that Ikram was really just downloading information to his brain on how Phil Hawes fights, when he throws. He was timing Phil Hawes' punches, his jab, his cross, and he was gathering information to figure out when the perfect time to strike would be and what that strike would be to knock Phil Hawes out. And eventually he was able to find that strike and landed picture-perfect straight punch right down the pipe on the jaw of Phil Hawes, and he knocked Phil Hawes out violently. That was one of the most vicious finishes that I have ever seen. And in a sport of viciousness, in a sport that thrives on violence, only the most violent prevail. And to have a knockout that is so violent that it just overshadows the rest of the finishes on that card, it's very difficult to do that, but Ikram Aliskerov did that against Phil Hawes. He sent Phil Hawes to the hospital on a stretcher. Phil Hawes did not wake up for a very long period of time after Ikram knocked him out. So Ikram has that power. He just hasn't. He has an insurmountable punch. There's insurmountable force behind his punch, and it really is impossible to take a clean shot from a guy like Ikram Aliskerov without going out and out for the count. I could even say unconscious, cold, out cold. It's very, very difficult. You have to be pretty much heavyweight. I think Ikram's straight punch could knock out anybody up through the 205 division. Now, if it's a Francis Ngannou, maybe it's a different story, of course, but Ikram Aliskerov just has that it factor. He has the ability to finish a fight at any point in time. Now, Warlley Alves, his opponent, like I said, been fighting in the UFC since 2014, a veteran of the sport and a veteran of this promotion specifically, but he is on a 2-fight losing skid. He dropped his last 2 to Jeremiah Wells and Nicholas Dalby. Did not look all that great in the Dalby fight. Got dominated the whole time. He got outstruck by, I believe, around 80 punches. So yeah, Nicholas Dalby just looked like the better martial artist. It looked like Warlley Alves was a little bit worn out past his prime, and not necessarily there was no need for him to be in that octagon. Now, if you look 2 fights back, when he fought Jeremiah Wells, it was even worse. Jeremiah Wells brutally finished Warlley Alves. It was just, he landed a right hand, dropped Warlley, and then the ground and pound just put Alves to sleep. He was unconscious on the floor of that octagon, and it was scary. Jeremiah Wells is young and powerful, so I understand when you get caught by Jeremiah Wells, you're probably going to get dropped. But Ikram Aliskerov is no different. If anything, he is more threatening, more dangerous, and more powerful than Jeremiah Wells on the feet, and I think this does not bode well at all for Warlley Alves. I think if he gets caught once, this fight is over. I don't see him being able to take a clean shot on the jaw from Ikram Aliskerov and keep going. He does have one clear path to victory, which is grappling. Warlley Alves is a solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. He has submissions throughout his career. He has a good takedown game. But the problem is Ikram Aliskerov, he's a Dagestani. He very well could have that Dagestani wrestling where you do not want to go to the ground with that guy. Ikram Aliskerov, it just seems that he may have an advantage in every aspect of martial arts here in this fight. But I don't think this fight is going to the ground. I think Ikram Aliskerov is going to keep this fight standing and land that picture-perfect shot, putting Warlley Alves to sleep, out cold, unconscious, sending him to the Shadow Realm. I'm taking Ikram Aliskerov to win this fight and do so convincingly. Like I said before, Warlley, I just don't see it as a possibility for him to go 15 minutes without getting caught once. And I already said, I'll say it again, once he gets caught, this fight is over. Ikram has fight-changing power. He has the ability to end a fight at any point in time throughout a fight. That is what he is going to do. He's going to look for that one shot, that finisher, that KO punch that will separate Warlley Alves from consciousness, and that is the punch he will find. I'm taking Ikram Aliskerov to get the job done by knockout in this fight. Give me Ikram over Warlley Alves. Now, moving on to our third fight on the main card. This is really where things start to get interesting. This is where the fights start to, they hold a little more water. There are potentially belts or potential title shots on the line in the fights from here on out, or possibly even belts on the line like in our main event. So, The third fight on this main card takes place between Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. Magomed Ankalaev has not fought since that controversial draw against Jan Blachowicz, where he had a chance to obtain the interim title, would maybe be the champion of the light heavyweight division today if he was awarded the decision like he should have been in that fight. But no, the fight was called a draw. Social media erupted after that fight. Many people thought it was robbery, and Magomed Ankalaev actually won that fight. He did look good in the fight, I'll give him that, but I will say he had no answer for Jan Blachowicz' leg kicks. He really was not checking them, not moving out of the way of them. I noticed that as a glaring weakness in his game because he's so tall, so big, so heavy. He stands very high. It's hard for him to move his legs on a dime. And that leg kick was there over and over and over again for Jan Blachowicz. I mean, you could see visibly Magomed Ankalaev was in pain and hurting throughout the majority, maybe even the entirety of that fight, even though he probably did do enough to get the nod. So Johnny Walker, his real path to victory here is just staying calm, landing those leg kicks, because otherwise you have not seen much weakness from Magomed Ankalaev. He's shown an ability to wrestle in all of his fights. When he fought Nikita Krylov, he wrestled and he got the job done. He's shown an ability to strike. He outstruck Thiago Santos for 5 rounds. He TKO'd Anthony Smith in the first round with leg kicks of his own, actually. He had beautiful leg kicks in that Anthony Smith fight. But yeah, he's just shown a vast majority of his martial arts skill set is complete. He's a very complete fighter, as one could say. He's not a striker. He's not a grappler. He is not overly good in one discipline. He is just pretty damn good at every discipline, and that's why I think he has a very legitimate shot to not only win this fight, but go on to be the champion of the 205-pound division. Now, Johnny Walker, on the other side of things, he's a very wild fighter. His inability to maintain defensive responsibility is one of the biggest reasons he loses when he does. I mean, if you look at his fight against Jamal Hill, he got knocked out. Why? His hands were not up. Jamal Hill landed a huge overhand right, put Johnny Walker to sleep. He inflated like a balloon before falling to the canvas floor, absolutely unconscious, and receiving one of the most brutal ground and pound strikes I have ever seen in the sport of MMA. But yeah, Johnny Walker, he's just a little bit wild. He's out of control sometimes, and that's why his fights tend to be so exciting, but it's also why he does not always end up on the victorious side of things. Now, in his last fight against Anthony Smith, he won in a 3-round decision, a fairly dominant fight, but it was interesting. It was a calm and composed Johnny Walker that we saw that night in the octagon, rather than the wild Johnny we usually get, which is good. I think a calm, composed Johnny Walker has a legitimate chance to stay in the fight with and maybe even beat Magomed Ankalaev. Now, in the post-fight press conference, obviously Dana White was not so happy with Johnny Walker for just kind of coasting to that decision victory in actually what I believe was a 5-round fight, my mistake. But yeah, he didn't do what Dana wanted him to do in a spot where it could have been a chance for him to ascend to stardom. Instead, he fought calm and composed, unlike normal, and just coasted to a decision victory. Now, what he usually does is get highlight reel finishes, like against Paul Craig. He landed one right hand and then threw some crazy back fists to a grounded Paul Craig, earning himself a first-round TKO victory. So Johnny Walker, he brings an aspect of unpredictability because of the unorthodox strikes and finishes he has throughout his career. I mean, he's landed an axe kick. I mean, at the 205-pound division, to have the ability to throw an axe kick, it shows incredible flexibility for a man of his size. And Johnny Walker is a very big man, even for light heavyweight. He is large for that division. Now, so is Magomed Ankalaev, so I don't think anyone has a specific size advantage in this fight, but I do think that Magomed Ankalaev has the overall skill advantage. Now, I think Johnny Walker's one path to victory here would be staying calm, staying composed, throwing leg kicks so he limits the movement and mobility of Magomed Ankalaev, and then eventually finding that one shot that could drop Magomed Ankalaev and change the course of the fight. I mean, if you look at Magomed Ankalaev's fight against Thiago Santos, although he did dominate that fight for probably 24 minutes and 30 seconds of it, there was a 30-second window where Magomed Ankalaev was in trouble. He was hurt and buzzing from an overhand landed by Thiago Santos. So Magomed Ankalaev, he is not God. He is not untouchable. He is not unbeatable. He is a human being who bleeds just like you and I, and he can lose a fight. He can get knocked out, and his humility and humanity was exposed almost in that Thiago Santos fight and even in the Jan Blachowicz fight, where he was not able to fully dominate his opponent like he normally does. So if Johnny Walker can stay calm, stay composed, land leg kicks, and then find that one shot, I do think he has a legitimate chance to win this fight. That being said, I think Magomed Ankalaev is more skilled overall. He's a more composed martial artist. When he steps into the octagon, he does not let the moment take hold of him and guide him. He sticks to the game plan that he planned out prior to stepping in the octagon with his team. He's a smart fighter with a high ring IQ. When he is hurt or in danger, he knows how to minimize the risk of his opponent finishing him or doing any further damage. He's very good at maintaining range, and he can mix in the takedowns very well. So, if I'm a betting man, I'm taking Magomed Ankalaev to get the job done by decision here. The majority of his wins have come by decision. He is not typically a finisher outside of that fight against Anthony Smith, and I don't see why that trend would change now. Johnny Walker is a solid fighter who poses a threat in this fight. It's not going to be a one-sided fight, so Magomed Ankalaev cannot just go all reckless abandonment mode and try to get the finish. He's going to have to stay careful and composed to get this victory, which he will do so, and that's why I give the edge to Magomed Ankalaev in this fight. Like I said, Johnny Walker has that path to victory of leg kick, leg kick, leg kick, find that one big shot that will change the outcome and the course of that fight. But I think Magomed Ankalaev is just a more complete martial artist. He's a better martial artist up here. He has fortified his mind. He's smart. He can analyze his opponents and just understand the type of fighter they are from even a minute with them in the octagon. So, like I said, if I'm a betting man, I am taking Magomed Ankalaev by decision to win this fight in a hard-fought 3-round, not necessarily war, but definitely a little bit of a scrap where both men were threatened to lose the fight at times. I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to pull through. That is the Chokehold Hour's official pick for this fight. Magomed Ankalaev by decision. Lock it in. Take it to the bank, like I usually say. If you want to make some money, listen to me. That's my pick. Magomed Ankalaev by decision. Now, we will move on to the co-main event on this card. Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. Kamaru Usman takes this fight on 10 days' notice like the absolute savage that he is. And honestly, this is one of those fights where even though it's a co-main event, there's no belt on the line, and this is only going to be a 3-round fight, this feels like the main event to me. This has that main event feel around it. It has that main fight, main event buzz. I mean, you have two guys who have ascended to a level of stardom that many others in the UFC could never even dream of achieving. These are two of the biggest, if not the two biggest draws in the welterweight division alongside Colby Covington. I mean, I am so excited for this fight. It is going to be a true display of martial arts. When you have two guys that are such high caliber fighters like these two men, only one outcome is possible, and that is an absolute banger of a fight that as fans, we all just have to sit back, watch, and appreciate. I mean, this fight is going to be, it's going to be incredible, it's going to be amazing, and I cannot put into words how excited I am for this fight. Now, how do I think this fight will go? It's a very interesting question. First, let's analyze the Nigerian Nightmare side of things. Kamaru Usman obviously took this fight on 10 days' notice, so he's at an inherent disadvantage where he just hasn't had as much time to train or cut weight properly like Khamzat has. Khamzat has been preparing to fight on this night for a long time. Kamaru Usman has not. So that is one inherent advantage on the side of the Chechen. Now, Kamaru Usman, he's coming off of that loss to Leon Edwards. That's the last time he fought. I personally did not think he looked bad at all in that fight. I thought he showed an ability to stay composed and he mentally overcame the knockout. He stepped in the ring with a man who separated him from consciousness, made him see God. One would presume from the way Kamaru Usman's eyes were rolled in the back of his head after getting kicked in the head, catching a shin to the dome from Leon Edwards. He stepped back in the ring with Leon and fought a very good fight, stuck to his game plan, fought similarly to how he did in that first fight, and almost did enough to win. I would not have minded seeing that decision be awarded to either side, Leon or Kamaru, but I don't think Kamaru did enough to overcome the stamp that was placed on the rivalry between the two when Leon Edwards created the iconic moment that is known as Headshot Dead, yielding from his incredible head kick, perfectly placed, timed, and set up head kick to knock Kamaru Usman out. Usman just was not able to overcome that in the second fight. He didn't fight well enough for people to be like, oh wow, Kamaru Usman is actually better than Leon Edwards, and that was just a lucky shot. Leon Edwards did what he had to do, fought a good fight, and won that fight 3 rounds to 2. I think it was the right decision, but like I said, I would not have minded seeing it going to Kamaru Usman. I just don't think that Kamaru did enough as the challenger to win that fight. Obviously, if he still had the belt, maybe it's a different story. Nonetheless, Leon Edwards won that fight. Now, if you look at Kamaru Usman's career and think back to before he got kicked in the head by Leon Edwards, I mean, my God, was he running through everybody in the welterweight division. There was a point in time where I was thinking, wow, this guy is unstoppable. GSP will no longer be the GOAT of the welterweight division within Kamaru Usman's next 2, 3, 4 fights. I truly thought Kamaru Usman was going to overtake GSP as the GOAT. Now, you can argue that he already has. You can. That Leon Edwards' head kick knockout loss and not being able to revenge that loss in the rematch does impact his legacy a little bit. But regardless, with his resume, I mean, having knocked out Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, he did not just beat these guys, he knocked them all out. So you can absolutely still make the argument that Kamaru Usman is the GOAT of the welterweight division, but he just, it's hard now that he has been knocked out and lost 2 fights in a row, but that is besides the point. Like I said, he was running through everybody up until that Leon Edwards fight and did not look bad at all in the second match between the two. I think people are counting Kamaru Usman out of this fight way too much. Khamzat Chimaev is he's a minus 300 favorite, and I think that's absolutely outrageous. I mean, although the fight is on 10 days notice, this is Kamaru Usman we're talking about. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the most powerful punchers of all time, and it does not matter who you are. If you are standing across the octagon from Kamaru Usman, there is the looming threat that you could possibly get knocked out, get sent to the shadow realm. Kamaru Usman, if he lands flush, if he lands a right hand clean on almost anyone's jaw, they are going to sleep no matter what. It does not matter who is on the receiving end of that punch. Look what happened to Colby Covington. Jaw broken. Look what happened to Gilbert Burns. Jab, just the jab. He got knocked out. Look what happened to Jorge Masvidal. I mean, that was a picture-perfect right hand. Kamaru Usman set up the right hand with the feint left hook through that powerful right hand, just buzzed Jorge Masvidal right on the chin in the perfect spot, separated him from consciousness on impact. Immediately when that punch landed, Jorge Masvidal was out cold and the fight was over. Now, the ground and pound shots, as Kamaru Usman said, were super necessary, quoting Jorge Masvidal after he knocked out Ben Askren. But Kamaru Usman still has got it. He still has that power, that ability to finish a fight at any point, and he has a wrestling base. He's a very strong fighter. So I don't think he'll just get dominated for the entirety of the fight. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning that there was a tweet going around that Kamaru Usman may have popped his knee in his open workout leading up to the fight. Now, his teammate and friend Justin Gaethje did come out on social media and say that he was just going to hit pads with a coach on the side after doing his open mat grappling workout with Justin. He said there was no pop of the knee, but that could be a teammate covering for his friend, trying to not give the opponent any sort of competitive advantage. So we'll have to be wary of Kamaru Usman's knee in the fight because he has had knee issues in the past. I mean, there are stories that this guy cannot walk on concrete because his knees are so bad. It's just too painful. So yeah, I think that really, really is a drawback on Kamaru Usman's end. I think when you're fighting a guy as explosive and athletic as Khamzat Chimaev is, you can't. The bad knees are killer because Khamzat is going to be shooting for your knees, trying to wrap you up in a double leg repetitively throughout the entirety of that fight. And that does not bode well for a man who has poor knees. Still, like I said, we take that with a grain of salt because Justin Gaethje did say that he did not pop anything. We just have to keep an eye out for it as the fight takes place. Now, Kamaru Usman has one path to victory. That path, I believe, is the right hand. I think if he catches Khamzat Chimaev, if he buzzes him, he's going to win the fight. I think if he hurts Khamzat, he's going to capitalize and finish the fight. I do not see Kamaru Usman winning this fight by a boringish decision. He's not going to wrestle Khamzat Chimaev. I think Khamzat has a clear advantage on the ground, no matter how you slice it. I know Kamaru Usman is known for his wrestling, but he is a collegiate level wrestler. He he does not have Khamzat Chimaev is I believe he's a Swedish gold medalist in freestyle. I mean, he is a very, very talented wrestler with incredible pedigree behind him, an incredible resume of wrestling throughout his career in martial arts. And Kamaru Usman, like I said, good wrestler, does not have the advantage here in this fight. So his path to victory is on the feet. It is that right hand. He needs to stay defensively responsible, stay within his guard and within himself, because Khamzat Chimaev does have power on the other end of things, and he needs to just wait until Khamzat goes crazy like he did in that Gilbert Burns fight. He let the moment get to him. He let the energy in the room take control of him, and rather than fighting smart, he fought crazy, got in a barn burner, brawl type fight. Gilbert ended up dropping him. Kamaru Usman is more powerful than Gilbert Burns. I can say that with confidence and 100% certainty. When the two fought, Kamaru Usman knocked out Gilbert Burns. So Khamzat's path to victory is, Kamaru Usman's path to victory is landing that one big shot. If Kamaru lands that right hand, if he catches Khamzat on the chin, Khamzat's going to sleep, and that fight will be over. Now, looking at the other side, or the other half of this co-main event in Khamzat Chimaev, he is truly one of the most elite prospects this sport has ever seen, with a ceiling higher than maybe anyone we have ever witnessed within the realm and world of martial arts. I mean, Khamzat's career goes as far as he wants it to. As hard as he trains, that will directly correlate with his success within the UFC and how good he is down the road and in the future. Khamzat Chimaev is so inherently athletic, powerful, strong, explosive. He is built for fighting. His movements are so quick, but it's like a twitchy movement. He's so explosive that it's not only speed behind his movements, but power is being generated at such an incredible rate from such a short distance. He can hurt you with any punch from anywhere, and he also has the ability to shoot a double leg or any sort of takedown from any angle because of that inherent athleticism and explosiveness. He's very good at what he does. Now, I think mentally he needs to train his fight IQ a little bit more. We saw, like I said, in that Gilbert Burns fight, once things got hard, once things got rough, once Gilbert started landing some shots of his own, Khamzat Chimaev just was like, F it, it's time to brawl. I mean, he just totally forgot his game plan, totally forgot he had the wrestling advantage, the size advantage, and maybe even the cardio advantage over Gilbert Burns, and just decided to go for it, decided to stand and trade and exchange. You can't do that against Kamaru Usman, because Kamaru Usman will knock you out if he finds your chin. But that being said, Khamzat, he took some pretty big shots from Gilbert Burns. He showed the ability to withstand punches and showed that he has a jaw and can eat a shot. And he also showed that he has boxing abilities and he can stay in the pocket and stand and bang, swing, and trade shots without being on the losing side of the exchange. He still needs to maintain defensive responsibility against Kamaru Usman because, like I said, Kamaru has that one-shot KO power, and I think that's his best path to victory. So Khamzat cannot come out of his own. I think if he stays within his game plan and uses his wrestling against Kamaru Usman, he should get the job done with relative ease. I mean, Kamaru's coming off a 10 days notice. He has not been training for this fight. Khamzat Chimaev has been training tremendously and immensely leading up to this fight, and I just think that his wrestling is very good. His ability to land and time takedowns are even better, and once he gets you on the ground, there's pretty much no escape. His top pressure is insurmountable. It's unbelievable. He just swarms you with Khabib-like top control and just does not allow you to even advance positions from half guard to full guard, or side control back to half guard. It's just impossible to escape any sort of position or win any sort of scramble against Khamzat Chimaev on the ground because he's so athletic and he's so capable of keeping you on the ground. Now, I will say, I do think that Kamaru Usman is a better matchup for Khamzat Chimaev than Gilbert Burns was. The reason Khamzat did not want to go to the ground with Gilbert Burns is because Gilbert Burns is a multiple-time ADCC Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. I mean, Gilbert Burns is one of the best BJJ practitioners within the sport of martial arts, and he was threatening arm bars and triangles and guillotines from the bottom, from full guard on the bottom against Khamzat Chimaev. And Khamzat said in the post-fight press conference, I was not rocking with that. I did not want to even have to deal with the threat of a submission, so I stood the fight back up. Kamaru Usman, although he's a very good wrestler, does not pose any sort of submission threat. He has very minimally looked for submissions throughout the entirety of his career. He had Leon Edwards' back multiple times in the two of their fights. Never once looked for a rear naked choke. He's always trying to do damage and maintain control. So Khamzat Chimaev can take this fight to the ground as much as he wants without having to worry about the threat of being submitted while he's on top. That's just not part of Kamaru Usman's game plan. So I think that Kamaru Usman's wrestling style actually does play into the hands of Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, it's not a great matchup here for Kamaru, especially like I keep reiterating and placing emphasis on the fact that Kamaru's on 10 days notice, cutting weight, even for a guy who usually fights at 170. Kamaru Usman does not walk around at 185. I can promise you that. He was at least 210 pounds when he got the call for this fight and had to cut a lot of weight in a short period of time. When you cut weight like that, it drains the fluids around your brain. It makes you unaware of what's happening around you as much as you would be if you didn't have to cut so much weight so fast, and it decreases your chin and your ability to take a punch. So if Khamzat Chimaev lands a big right hand of his own, because I've talked about his explosivity and his power already, and his ability to generate that power from any angle on any shot, the fight could very well be over. Kamaru Usman could get knocked out by Khamzat Chimaev. I see that as a possibility as how this fight plays out. I also see Kamaru Usman landing a right hand of his own and knocking out Khamzat Chimaev. There's just so many ways this fight can go because the two men are both so skilled in their specific disciplines of martial arts. Kamaru Usman is so strong and just so powerful, and Khamzat Chimaev is so explosive. This is almost a test and a fight of athleticism versus athleticism. You take Kamaru Usman and you take Khamzat Chimaev. These are two of the most athletic fighters on the UFC roster right now. Now, who is my official pick to win the fight? I think I'd have to give the advantage to Khamzat Chimaev. I think Khamzat's going to be able to get the job done in this fight, maybe by decision because it's only a 3-round fight, and Kamaru Usman is a hard man to get put out of the octagon and finish by knockout or submission. He has good submission defense. He has good striking defense. It's difficult to clip him with a big right hand, but I think because of the training camp disparity and the knee issues on Kamaru's side of things, I think Khamzat Chimaev just does have an inherent advantage coming into this fight that will likely lead him on the path to victory and allow him to get his hand raised against one of the greatest fighters in the sport ever. Now, Dana White did say that this is now a number one contender fight at the 185-pound division. Whoever wins this fight will be fighting for the title next against Sean Strickland. I think, and to be honest with you, regardless of how good Sean Strickland looked against Israel Adesanya, I think either of these men can beat Sean Strickland, so this fight could potentially decide your future middleweight champion of the world, which is why the implications are just so high. But like I've said multiple times, I'm giving the advantage to Khamzat Chimaev in this fight. I think Khamzat is going to be able to get the job done. It could go either way. I have laid out Kamaru Usman's path to victory, laid out Khamzat Chimaev's. I just think that Khamzat's path is more attainable, and this fight is going to be an uphill battle for Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, former welterweight champion of the world and possible welterweight GOAT. That being said, I give the advantage to Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat bores Chimaev to get the job done here in the co-main event of UFC 294. Now we will move on to the biggest, or should I say the smallest, fight on this main card, taking place between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski for double champ status at the 155-pound lightweight division. Now, Alexander Volkanovski also took this fight on 10 days' notice, like his co-main counterpart Kamaru Usman. Islam Makhachev was scheduled to fight against Charles Oliveira, rematching for the lightweight belt. Instead, Charles Oliveira received a cut in sparring over one of his eyebrows. It was a huge gash. He was leaking, pulled out of the fight. Here we are. Alexander the Great Volkanovski steps up and saves the card. So let's break down the two men that are partaking in this battle that is the main event of UFC 294. Islam Makhachev, he obviously won that first fight against Alexander Volkanovski. He had a clear advantage on the ground. He was able to take down Volk, not with ease, but he was able to do it repetitively, and although he would fail ultimately on some of his takedown attempts, some would get stuffed, he would just keep shooting until he was able to worm Volk to the ground. But he did get caught on the feet. Islam Makhachev he definitely looked good striking. I think people get confused. They think Islam and Khabib are the same fighters, and that is so false. It's a narrative that I just need to debunk right now. Look at Khabib Nurmagomedov. His fighting style, it is straight wrestling, forward pressure, cardio, and top control. He comes after you, comes at you, stays on his front foot for the entirety of the fight, keeps you on your back foot against the cage, and just overwhelms you with pressure because he has never-ending cardio and can just come forwards without any consequences on his gas tank, and eventually he will just shoot takedowns over and over and over until he lands that takedown and gets you to the ground. And once he gets you to the ground, his top control is just so stifling. I mean, he is in your face, not allowing you to escape from any sort of position at any time until he can lock up one of his signature submissions. Now, looking at Islam Makhachev, he is just so different than Khabib. He does not have that unlimited gas tank that Khabib has. He's been knocked out in his career, and he's also a much more technical striker. Islam Makhachev is a good striker. Now, grappling is obviously his home. He is a wrestler. He practices Sambo. He is very, very good on the ground, but he does not have the top control that Khabib has, and that was shown by Alexander Volkanovski's ability to escape positions and get up back to the feet from the ground when he fought Islam Makhachev. Islam is more of a technical fighter than Khabib. He's not as physically gifted, but when he gets you on the ground, he has a wider plethora. He has a wider bag, I should say, of submissions. He has more submissions to go to than Khabib because he's better at jiu-jitsu specifically than Khabib was. Islam is very good at transitioning, switching positions, and getting where he needs to be on the ground to put himself in a position to submit you, choke you out, and finish you. Khabib was not like that. He kept you where you were. He stifled you with pressure and just overwhelmed you until he could submit you. Islam, he doesn't necessarily stifle you with pressure. He just is so good at knowing where his body and weight needs to be at what times that he is just able to keep you where you are and eventually advance positions to the point where a submission is inevitable. So that is why Khabib and Islam are very different fighters. But like I said, Islam has been knocked out before in his career. He's been clipped. Khabib had not. And even Alexander Volkanovski dropped Islam in their first fight. So I do see paths to victory for Alexander Volkanovski, but we have to remember Islam Makhachev won that fight. He got caught a couple times. It was a controversial decision. He ended the fight in a fetal position, but Islam did win that fight. He got the job done and showed superior grappling and even superior striking to Alexander Volkanovski at times, and showed that he really was the more talented martial artist. It was very close, but Islam prevailed on that night. And looking at this rematch where Alexander Volkanovski only has 10 days notice, it's just very hard for me to see him performing any better than he did when they originally fought, because he performed so well, almost perfectly, that first time they fought and still could not get the job done. How is he going to not only improve his performance and be better to win this fight, but do so on 10 days notice? Now, I say that, but if you look back in history, there's been times where it's been done. You look at Michael Bisping when he won the middleweight championship of the world by knocking out Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping, when they initially fought, Luke Rockhold dominated Mike Bisping. Mike Bisping got a call to fight Luke Rockhold on 2 weeks' notice. He was quite literally filming a movie, packed his bags, took the fight, won the middleweight championship of the world. So it's possible to do better than you did in an initial bout in the rematch when you are taking the rematch on short notice. It's just very, very difficult. And that Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold case is a one-off of almost every other time. When this happens, it does not bode well for the man taking the fight on short notice, especially when Volk has already lost to Islam. But looking at Volk and his paths to victory, I mean, it's there. I have to give him, I'll never count Volk out because it's Alexander Volkanovski. He's shown that he is one of the current best martial artists in the world, if not the most well-rounded and best martial artist in the world, pound for pound. So I would never put it past Volk to achieve the impossible and get the job done this weekend. I'm just saying it's going to be an uphill battle for him, like it will be for Kamaru Usman. His paths to victory, well, he had a clear advantage in the latter rounds. This is why I think it's just going to be so difficult for him to win this fight. When he thrived against Islam Makhachev, it was when Islam was tired. In that fifth round, Islam was done. Alexander Volkanovski got Islam on the ground. He got top position and started raining down unanswered ground and pound strikes that likely would have resulted in a finish if the fifth round did not end when it did. Islam Makhachev knew he did enough to get the job done by decision, so once he was tired and Volk got in a dominant position, Islam almost just submitted to a decision victory. He was like, okay, I'm going to ride out this position, not even attempt to get up and expose myself and cause any unnecessary threat. I'm just going to take this beating for a little bit and get the decision victory. So Alexander Volkanovski showed that he does actually indeed have a cardio advantage over Islam Makhachev. Now the question is, does he still have that same advantage taking the fight on 10 days notice? That's a question we can only answer come this Saturday when we see him step in the octagon and we see the fight begin in the latter rounds, in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. We will find out come this Saturday, but that is going to be the question that I believe decides the winner of this fight. I think if Alexander Volkanovski wants to win, he has to have had to maintain that cardio advantage because he did not have many other advantages. His true one advantage over Islam Makhachev is grit. I mean, I do think that Alexander Volkanovski is a better boxer than Islam Makhachev, but overall on the feet, Islam Makhachev throws very nice high kicks. He does a very good job of maintaining range and throwing strikes from a distance, and he does a good job of putting his strikes together and allowing them to create openings for takedowns because people are worried about his striking. Like I said, he's a more diverse striker than Khabib. He's a better striker than Khabib. He has many more weapons. Khabib did not throw head kicks. Islam Makhachev has dangerous head kicks that can knock you out, like we saw in the first round of his fight against Alexander Volkanovski, where he landed a left high kick that really hurt Volk and had him stumbling on his back foot, wondering if he was going to make it out of that first round. So yeah, I think that Volk needs to have maintained that cardio advantage. Otherwise, I don't see how he's going to win this fight. Now, I will say the last time Islam Makhachev fought was when he fought Alexander Volkanovski on February 11th, which happens to be my birthday, by the way, of this year. That was the best birthday present I ever could have asked for. Side note, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. What a fight it was. But Volk, he needs to have maintained that cardio advantage because he just did not show many strengths that could outdo the skill set brought to the table by Islam Makhachev. I think that he needs to start fast because, like I said, the last time Islam Makhachev fought, my birthday, February 11th, he has not fought since. Alexander Volkanovski dominated Yair Rodriguez in his hiatus between that last fight and this fight that is about to take place on Saturday. So Alexander Volkanovski has the activity advantage. If he can come out early and clip Islam Makhachev, scare him and make him, uneasy for the entirety of the fight, and then take over in those latter rounds, I think there is a real path to victory for Alexander Volkanovski, but unfortunately, I do have to give the advantage to Islam Makhachev. I'd love to see the success story of the underdog becoming the double champion here in the UFC, because to be a double champ, it is so rare, and to have one in our present generation right now in the UFC would just be an amazing thing. And all the fights that could be made, Alexander Volkanovski being the champ at lightweight, I mean, Justin Gaethje versus Alexander Volkanovski, what a fight. Alexander Volkanovski versus Dustin Poirier, incredible fight. Alexander Volkanovski versus Charles Oliveira. There's just so much more you can do as a promotion to create good fights, because Islam, he beat Charles Oliveira already. People don't need to see that fight again. He's stylistically a bad matchup for Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. I mean, his wrestling is just probably too much for both of them. So Alexander Volkanovski winning this fight would just open up the possibilities for the UFC tenfold. It would be absolutely game-changing for the UFC as a promotion and how they could schedule and carry out their cards in the near future. But like I said, I have to give the advantage to Islam Makhachev. I think because Volk is taking this fight on 10 days' notice, it just makes it so unlikely for him to perform any better than he did in their first bout. And I mean, Islam Makhachev, he has the keys to victory against Alexander Volkanovski. He knows what Volk brings to the table. He knows what he's good at. He knows where, well, he's not as good as Islam. And Islam is going to use this information to just fight a perfect fight and get another decision victory over Alexander Volkanovski. Now, I am not counting Alexander Volkanovski out. I will never count Alexander Volkanovski out. Why would his nickname be Alexander the Great Volkanovski if he cannot achieve great things on a moment's notice? He can. He absolutely can. But I do not think he will this weekend. I would give the advantage to Islam Makhachev. I believe Islam Makhachev is going to win this fight by decision. Now, for betting, I would stay away from this fight. I think the odds are not favorable. Islam Makhachev is a heavy favorite. You're not going to win much money betting on him. And on the flip side, Alexander Volkanovski has quite the slim chance, I'd say, to win this fight. It's Volk. I'm never going to count him out, but advantage definitely goes to Islam Makhachev in this fight, so that would be my final pick. Islam Makhachev to win this fight by decision. That being said, I am 100%, I will be honest, I am rooting for Alexander Volkanovski. I love chaos. I love unruliness. I love the unknown. I love MMA because it provides such an unknowingness of, you don't know who's going to win. When two men step in that octagon, any man can get the job done. Any person can land that one final seminal blow that just caps off and ends a fight, separating their opponent from consciousness. Now, if Alexander Volkanovski is the champion at lightweight, the unknown is just never-ending and expanding for this UFC. You have no clue what fight's going to be booked next. Does Islam get the rematch? Does Charles get that fight because he pulled out of this one? He was supposed to be fighting for this title. Is Justin Gaethje, who's been sitting out, going to get that shot after flawless wins over Rafael Fiziev and Dustin Poirier? I mean, you just have so many possibilities. If Alexander Volkanovski wins this fight, the unknown appeases me. I like the unknown. That is why I will be cheering for Alexander Volkanovski come this Saturday. But advantage, unfortunately, goes to the Dagestani prodigy, Islam Makhachev. I believe Islam will retain the lightweight belt come this Saturday. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes another episode of the Chokehold Hour. I hope you all enjoyed watching. I hope you leave this episode with some key takeaways for these fights that can help you either bet and make some money or understand the fights just a little bit better, because that is my goal each and every week. I'm here looking to educate you all, help you all make some money gambling, and at the end of the day, just make your UFC viewing experience overall more enjoyable because you have more knowledge entering the card. You have background on all the fighters, so you can just understand things a little bit more. That is what myself as the Chokehold Hour is here for. That being said, before we end this episode, I have very exciting news to share with all of you, my viewers. This Saturday, I will be doing a live broadcast of UFC 294. I will be the man calling the action on play-by-play for UFC 294. My color commentator is to be determined, but there will be a broadcast called by me, led by me, come this Saturday for UFC 294. There will be no video streaming of the fight. It will be an audio-only broadcast, most likely on YouTube Live, coming right here from the Chokehold Hour, but I will be calling the action. And guys, I'm relatively new to calling the action for martial arts, but I know a lot about the game. I've done play-by-play. I have experience in that end of things, and I am just very passionate about this personal project I'm doing. So I'd love if you all could tune in, and I promise you will hear some iconic, memorable calls when this memorable card takes place this Saturday. I am not 100% sure if there will be a live stream on this YouTube channel for the fight. If it is not live streamed, I will upload the entirety of the broadcast following. I'm still trying to figure out the kinks of how I will broadcast it live, but if you see me live come this Saturday, you know what's going on. It's my play-by-play broadcast of UFC 294, and it's just going to be so fun getting the ability to call the fights, because as you all know, my dream one day is to be the man calling the fights for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or really just any of those major promotions at one point. MMA is my first love. The UFC made me fall in love with the sport, and one day I hope to be on the big stage doing big things. But for now, I am just super excited to even be able to get to do any sort of play-by-play broadcast of any sort of MMA fight. Nonetheless, probably the best card of the year. So stay tuned, y'all. If I'm live, I'll be doing a play-by-play broadcast. If I'm not live, I will be uploading the clips of my broadcast following the fight in the coming days after the chaos unravels and we have seen who's won, who's lost, and where the UFC is going to go from here. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I want you guys to, engage, help me out a little bit. Maybe click the thumbs up button, because the more engagement I get, the easier it is, for me to make content, because I know there's people waiting on that content, and I just love making content for you guys. So I'm going to keep doing that. Hopefully y'all will keep enjoying it. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. All my socials are the same at the Chokehold Hour. Made it easy for y'all to find me on every platform at quite literally any time. It could be 2 a.m. while you're laying in your bed scrolling on TikTok. You need a little plug for a bet this weekend, you look up the Chokehold Hour. I am right there. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you all so much for watching. That is the Chokehold Hour.